Hey everybody, this is Joe. Thank you for watching my Giga Texas construction update video. Before we get into the Giga Texas drone flight today, there are two subjects that I would like to go over in the intro. One is my recent trip over to Bastrop, Texas, where there is a lot of change with many of Elon Musk companies. And then the second is the grand opening of Allo Atomics here in Austin, and I wanted to give you a little bit of information about that. So here's some short clips about each of these subjects.
Well, hey everybody, this is Joe. I'm out at Hyperloop Plaza in Bastrop, Texas, and this place is just continuing to grow like you would not believe. Now, a few years ago when I first came out here, it was just basically an empty location with a little bit of the Boring Company starting to take shape. Since then, this place has grown to be a full-fledged Boring Company facility and manufacturing plant for the tunnel boring machines. They also built Hyperloop Plaza and the Boring Bodega here. In addition to that, behind me over here is the new X Safety Center, and as of just last week, announced as, at least for now, the headquarters for the X company. The old Twitter that is now X, and this is the facility, and it's right here next to the Hyperloop Plaza, or in the Hyperloop Plaza next to the Boring Bodega, and of course the Boring Company site. On this side of the street is the Starlink facility for SpaceX, and you'll notice that there is a lot of construction behind me. That is because they are in the process of more than doubling the original size of this facility. And right behind me here in the white with that swooping glass line onto the corner, that's the original 521,000 square foot facility. But with this new construction that is going on, as I mentioned, that's going to be more than doubling it. It's about $8 million worth of new work that is going on here. And this is all because the Starlink is becoming very popular around the world. And joining in with the X company's headquarters, the Boring Company, the Boring Bodega, and Hyperloop Plaza, this entire area is just becoming enormous part of the Elon Musk economy of this part of Texas. So where we're standing is kind of ground central of all of the Elon Musk companies here in Texas, and it's just continuing to grow. So hopefully with what I'm talking about here, some of the imagery that I've been showing throughout this short video clip, this gives you a really good appreciation of what is going on here, what it looks like today, and of course, in a few months, it's going to look even more developed than it is now. Hey everybody, I'm here at Allo Atomics grand opening in Austin, Texas, and this is a pretty ambitious new company. Their goal is to bring micro-sized and modular nuclear power plants to the industry.
We are Allo Atomics. We design and build nuclear reactors that are small enough to fit in your garage and can power anything from a data center to a large city.
And to do that, they want to build this factory here to vertically integrate the entire process and mass produce these nuclear plants. Now, unlike what normal nuclear plants come to mind, those large infrastructure projects that are the size of factories, they have thousands of workers, and it's a very complex operation. Instead, this uses some new technology, and technology that's based on work that was done in the 1950s and 60s to bring semi-truck trailer-sized nuclear power plants. And these, as I mentioned, are modular. They can be stacked together, so you could get 1, 2, or 3. Each one of them produces approximately 10 megawatts of electricity. Also, it can produce thermal energy in addition to the electricity because of the processes that are used. Now, we're going to go ahead and go into the factory. We're going to get a chance to talk to the CEO of the company, get some more details about what their plans are, and of course, be part of the grand opening ceremony, which is just about to begin. So this is pretty exciting, and I'm looking forward to learning more about this company and also sharing with you what they are planning on doing, because it is pretty neat.
If you would like to support my efforts, please consider using these links, which will be in the video description. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons on my YouTube video, as this helps as well. Thank you. My drones are ready and raring to go. Let's go flying over Giga Texas. What a beautiful day to be flying here at Giga Texas. And I thought I'd start off on the far east side and give you a view back towards the downtown Austin over the main factory. And while we're here, I'll bring the drone down lower and get a look at some of the equipment and materials, some of the workshops, and also the construction trailers on the left-hand side of the screen for the people that are continuing to supervise and perform the construction here. Also, next to this large kind of dirt pile on the left, on the bottom right of the screen is where more recycling takes place. And there's also some DMG Mori machines that are just waiting for whatever is going to happen to them. And of course, some more of the bodies in white. Actually, a couple of them are painted. 4 of them look like they're Model Ys. One is a Cybertruck, and maybe another underneath the Cybertruck body. But this is where that recycling takes place as well. It's been a while since I've come over to this part of the site. Now, as we go over the maintenance part of Martin Marietta's concrete truck fleet, I wanted to give you a look through this location where Tesla Road will come through eventually. Also, some of that equipment in the white and teal on the ground waiting for installation. Next to this kitchen, on the bottom of the screen, the more of the conduit is being finished. And then where that dirt section has had all the grade work, that looks like it's completed underneath here and under this depression next to the machine room of the crash test facility is where all the conduit came from. And they're doing some additional earthwork now on the left-hand side of the screen around this part of the site. As we go over the crash test facility, a look at the new fence that has been placed around this facility itself and segregating it away from the cathode building on the left. More of the vehicles that have gone through the crash testing stored on this north end. Also, a gate that leads to the driveway to the wade pit, and there is a little bit of water, most likely from some rain. I don't think that they've been using it in a while. The cell testing lab looks like it's still busy, and still waiting for maybe some asphalt around that area where it's got a lot of the dirt. As we proceed far to the northeast, I wanted to take a look at the action that is going on with some of the dirt and earthwork that is going on. Also, it looks like there are some concrete slabs that have been brought up here, maybe being broken up for recycling. There has been some excavation work in this location, and what you see in the center of the screen is the maintenance facility for rental equipment and some of the workshops for that, and also equipment storage. On the right-hand side of the screen at the bottom is some of the concrete segments that were removed from the south end before the extension work began. But looking across the rental equipment lot and the kind of the tree-lined location with the hills and ponds, we see this large field, and they've been using this for a while to store a lot of equipment, a lot of materials. Most of it is related to production processes within the factory. And as I bring the drone around, you will tell that there are a variety of equipment that is covered in plastic, different kinds of colors. And also it looks like platforms on the kind of the left-hand side of the screen, that red items with some of the white, that usually is used inside of the factory for production. I'll bring the drone down a little lower so you can get a better look at what that material appears like. I'm going to fly back over these hills and ponds and the trees. This is one of the last remaining parts of the site that it looks like it did before construction began. This is part of that sand and gravel mining. And that is what this entire site used to be. And that's why you have these long, kind of linear hills in that area. More concrete from the south end, still here waiting to be broken up. Also the bridge crane and its supports, and also that stainless steel kind of tubular piece of equipment still has not been moved in, but its companion has already been moved inside a while ago. As we get to the north end of the cathode plant, we still have all of those Model Ys parked on the left-hand side of the screen, and I think they're still being used by employees, but still haven't been able to find out for sure. As we cross over the lift station, I'll bring the drone down a little lower. I did notice that there is a lot more equipment that has been stored in this kind of fenced-off section, and this is a closer, lower-end view of all of this, and it looks like they have a lot of plastic wrapped around much of the equipment. And we did see recently, my last video, some trucks bringing in robotic assemblers too, so that may be related. The crane is hooked up to one of the wall panels. This is in the area where we've seen that wall panel removed before, and they put up a kind of temporary loading platform. That may be what we are seeing again, and that may indicate more equipment being prepared for installation in that third floor. The chiller plant does not look like it's operational today, despite all of the augmented chillers and generators. On the north side of the die shop, more equipment and items that are used inside for some of the setup and production. As we wrap around the west side, I did notice that a large wooden crate had been had the interior removed, and it looks like it's getting ready for recycling, and a couple of other kind of white frames nearby. So the work inside continues as they prepare for operations. I'm going to reposition over to the electrical switchyard where there is some big changes today. With this zoom in, the foundation and the catch basin really looks like it's making progress. All the concrete's been poured. They are getting ready to start removing all of the forms. And you can see that there's also some more rebar cages nearby on the north end. Also on the ground here, the concrete footings have been completed. That's to allow more of the steel items to be assembled, very much like what we were seeing in the rest of the image. And then in this area, more of the footings are being prepared to add additional steel items and turn this side of the site to match the other two so that they can connect the third large transformer that will be on that slab and catch basin, very similar to the other two that are already installed. As I pull away, I wanted to also just give an update on the water detention pond. They have kind of gone through this. They cleaned it out. They've reformed much of the berms and the shape of the pond and ensured that it can drain successfully. Also, it looks like additional excavation work here outside the fence, probably for stormwater management system. And on this vault that is under the ground, you see two of those control trailers. There should be a third one where the fence is located. And of course, more of the trailers for the workers from LCRA and equipment on the south side of the switchyard. As we get to this location on the ground, some of the concrete vaults where the conduit and the cables have been pulled through. And in the center of the screen, I will zoom in this structure that is sort of like a bridge to allow the conduit and the cables to go up over what is buried underneath. It appears to me that it's getting a grate type material on the top of that structure now. So definitely progress and additional work along this entire area with some grading, it looks like to me. So let's fly to the south along the east side of the factory. We'll start at a higher altitude, then I'll come back at a lower altitude. But this is what the east side of the casting machine structure looks like today. A lot of the castings on the ground and in rack mounts. We see more of the concrete pouring that is underway. Two large items are being delivered and getting ready to be hoisted up on top of the baghouse filtration plant. And more work on the earthwork on the medians here underneath the power lines as they reshape those. As I maneuver over towards the old testing and calibration lot to look at some of the Cybertrucks that are stored here. Also, I'll come back for a closer look, but there are some Cybertrucks at the wind tunnel. In this material staging yard, as I bring the drone down lower, we can tell all of the pipes and connections. This is a part of the south end cooling system that is being installed both at the chiller plant or the cooling plant and inside the extension, and that's for the Cortex supercomputer data center. As I mentioned, next to the helicopter pad is this white wind tunnel. And there are a few Cybertrucks that are parked nearby. This is a closer view of what that appears like. Next to the Cybertrucks is a turntable, and that way they can change the way that the vehicle is angled into the wind. And also a few other of the equipment items, including on the bottom right, is where the drones are launched for Giga Texas, and that's the internal Tesla drone team. The orange and silver Rainmaker is not really being used now, as they have Rainmakers inside the new end-of-line facility on the west side of the factory. As I get closer to the kind of the space between the parking garage and the main factory, this is a look at more of that median work that is underway. I'm not sure if this is to have more space for castings or if there's some other reason why they are doing all of this work. I also continue to get questions from people asking about the power lines themselves and if Tesla is ever going to move them. The answer is no. They don't belong to Tesla. They belong to Austin Energy, and there is an easement underneath the towers and through this area where Tesla cannot make any changes. So these are going to be here for quite some time. As I come over those power lines and bring the drone down, this is a much closer look at where more of the concrete and some future concrete work is remaining in front of these receiving doors and that kind of the north retaining wall that they are working on. As we continue to fly to the north, I wanted to give you a better look at the work that's going on with the baghouse filtration plant. On the south end is those two large tanks kind of structures. They actually have doors, so they are partially open for people to go inside. The filtration units with those kind of ventilation ducts on the roof, and they're still working on the ducting to connect this side of the baghouse filtration plant to where we see this taller structure and this kind of square cubular item that has been installed on the top of the structure. On the ground floor, we see two more of them getting ready to be moved up. So I'm going to expect at least this opening in the bottom center of the screen will have one of those, and then we'll see where the other one goes. Of course, more of the pipe work continues to be prepped for installation. This is a view of that new concrete section just in front of these receiving doors for the battery for the casting machine structure, where the dies from the Giga presses will be brought out on these rails to those pads and then picked up and moved over to the die shop for additional work. And as I bring the drone down lower, say a nice look at the work on the baghouse filtration plant, those two items that are being ready for pickup, and the work on the ground here with the slab that is continuing. And that red kind of truck item on the left is a screed that's used for the furnaces to maneuver the molten aluminum that is from the scraps of the Giga presses. There is work going on in the vaults here with cables going through the conduit. This is part of the overall conduit that reaches up to that south end of the switchyard that we saw earlier. As I maneuver towards the north end of the factory, another look at these four temporary cooling units, very large on trailers. The new receiving doors under the cover on the left, and that's used for some of the biscuit scraps that come off of the castings when they are first manufactured and removed from the Giga presses. This is a view of the north end of the 4680 cell site, and they continue to work on the inside, finishing up and bringing online the production lines that should bring to a total of 8 production lines here at Giga Texas by the end of the year. As we wrap around the angled corner, I did want to show you that there is progress with this section where they removed the concrete. They are now have the yellow moisture barrier. They've got the rebar, the forms, the bollards that we saw being cut into the ground are being installed, and most likely those will be filled with concrete. and then this entire section will be filled with concrete, and I expect to see some sort of equipment installed on this part of the site. While we're here, I'll bring the drone up to a higher altitude, and we'll get a update of the work that's going on with the ducted fans and many of these galvanized ducting that is being installed, plus the mounts onto the roof here. Again, this is part of the 4680 battery cell production process, and with those new production lines coming in line, these may be related to ensure proper ventilation. As I bring the drone back down, speaking of 4680s, this is another site where they do the recycling of the cans for the 4680s. As you can tell, they are picked up and moved to Austin Metal and Iron for that recycling. These are not completed batteries. These are just the cans that would be the outside of the 4680s. We do see some progress here in this dirt section. They've disconnected the red and black item on the left with some of the pipes that went in for the temporary fire water loop, and they are doing some more work on the ground in between those black fences. I'm going to fly to the south, a great view of the flags just across from the west main entrance, and a nice breeze coming in from the west to the east today to give the flags a nice look to them. Also on the ground is more of the Model Ys. They are exiting the factory here, and once they get a certain number and the drivers back, then they are driven over to the outbound lot on the west side of the site for processing and then eventual pickup. So it does look like production is doing pretty well, even though this is kind of early in the morning as production is getting up to speed for the day. As I maneuver the drone around to give you a better view of the flags, the end-of-line facility and outbound lot, we'll go ahead and prepare to cross over the highway, and we'll resume the narration on the other side. Work on the natural gas pipeline is proceeding quite quickly, and a lot of the section from here to the south and even on the north end is now buried and the trenches filled back in. So this work is continuing, and this is not part of Giga Texas per se. It is part of the Sand Hill Energy Plant just south of the river to get a new pipeline for what they call the lateral extension. The concrete vault on the bottom right is for drainage of that depression. And there's another one on the north side. I'll give you some views of that here in a moment. On the north end of the end-of-line facility, we see Model Ys and Cybertrucks queuing up for their final checks and processing. Once they complete through here, get supercharged, then they will go over to the outbound lot for pickup. And speaking of which, not only do we see a lot of vehicles throughout the entire outbound lot, not only on this north side, but throughout the middle section, but I will show you here in a moment, there are a lot of trucks for transport lining up, waiting for their time slots so they can come in and pick up vehicles. And you also see some more already loaded up departing the site. So this is probably part of that end of the third quarter big push. But a lot of Cybertrucks, that seems to be by far the vehicle that is being manufactured in the highest numbers right now at Giga Texas. And you can see that concrete vault that I mentioned, that's for drainage. And again, all of the trucks that are lining up here waiting for their appropriate time slot to go pick up the vehicles. And of course, Cybertrucks arriving on that road from the factory. And eventually, once we get the boring tunnel completed, we'll be able to see them coming through the tunnel instead of on that road. It's a nice view of all of the other vehicles. There are a good number of Model Ys as well as the Cybertrucks in the outbound lot. And the supercharger site here on the south end is about 50% busy right now. and about a mix of half Cybertrucks and half Model Ys on this side. As I continue to maneuver the drone to the south, looking across the outbound lot gives you a great perspective of the number of vehicles. And then in this section where we have seen in the recent past where Cybertrucks have segregated away and moved into covered trailers, now we see a mix of Model Ys and Cybertrucks here. So maybe that operation of using the covered trailers is now completed. And one last look across the outbound lot of all of the vehicles that are lined up here waiting for transport. As we cross over the central road, I wanted to look at the materials that are in this staging yard. We have a lot of electrical cabling and spools on the right, in the middle, next to those transformers, those 84 transformers, workshops on the bottom of the screen, some various materials and more of the spools of cabling, plus some of those white platform items waiting for eventual installation. And while I'm here, I'll bring the drone down lower. I wanted to get a good look at not only the superchargers on the trailers, the mobile superchargers, some of the other equipment that you can see on the easels, but also all of these blue and white items. These are, I believe, parts of a smaller stamping press, and they have been here for quite some time. Not sure what the delay is in getting these installed. But once that is in, that'll give Giga Texas even more stamping press capability. Now, all of these pipe segments are for the baghouse filtration plant. Some of them appear to be lined on the inside. I don't know if that's ceramic or just a white paint, but you can definitely tell that some of the interiors have a different coating to them. On the ground in the bottom right is more superchargers waiting for eventual installation. That large clearing with some of the earthwork going on. Again, that dirt is being used for the south side tunnels to prepare the grade. More of these large transformers on the bottom left, possibly for covered parking and solar panels at some point in the future. Again, that's speculation, so I'll have to continue to monitor that and see if that does come to pass. A nice look across the West Warehouse on Wheels to the main factory with the flags flying in the wind. And while I cross over River Road, I'm going to bring the drone back down, just get a good update on this trench work, which is for electrical conduit. It continues along this entire south side of the River Road and then underneath the South Bridge. So this may be more than just lighting. It may be just bringing in power to all of this entire section for various reasons in addition to lighting. This is another one of those concrete vault outflow channels for the water management system that goes underneath this entire section. In this particular case, there are two pipes that connect into it, and I expect to see some openings and riprap, which is like broken up rock on the south end, and that'll allow it for draining. I did notice some big changes here next to the horizontal drilling operation. I'll give you a closer view of that in a minute, but the bigger news are these concrete panels. These are the road surface panels that go inside the boring tunnel. You can see all of the marks with P. That means that they have passed inspection, and these are the new versions to replace the ones that had broken that we have talked about in the past. Now, 2 days ago, I was over at the boring facility in Bastrop, Texas, and they have a lot of these in final preparation, so I expect to see them coming back here for the tunnel. As I mentioned, the horizontal drilling operation is well underway. This is part of the natural gas pipeline installation and also going underneath the tunnel here. Now, speaking of tunnels, there are some big changes that I would like to point out, especially on the opening of the tunnel. You'll note that they've done some grade work, kind of a slope into the tunnel, also kind of a barrier so you can see where the height of those road panels, those concrete panels will be installed. They've also done some connections of the electrical conduit through here, and the fact that they've covered it with dirt is a great sign, not only for the conduit, which you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, but also for the preparation of installing those road panels. And those orange fences, again, is where the natural gas pipeline has been bored underneath the tunnel, and it will continue to extend all the way to the north along the road. So let's get ready to cross over the highway, and we'll take a look at some of the activity that is going on here next to this ramp. And it continues the uncrating of a lot of materials and items, and then they break them down for recycling in some of those areas where I showed you at the beginning of the video. And we just continue to see all of these crated items arriving and being used inside. Now, I don't know, it's a speculation on my part, but some of those crates look like they may be for battery packs. If that's the case, they may be bringing in dry electrode battery packs for Cybertrucks as part of a either test or maybe to ensure that everything's working well with the production line before gearing up the line here at Giga Texas. A lot of the Cybertrucks leaving the factory today, going over to the outbound lot. And then here I'll stop where we see work being done on the mounts and also putting in some of the frames for glass. That's what you can see along the tops of these white beams. And that is what most of the workers are doing today. And we can also see some of the frames on the bottom parapet of the perimeter grade beam on the ground level. Here's a closer view of some of the mounts along with the numbers where you see 49, 48, 47, etc. And we also see some fencing inside on the second floor has been recently installed. More work on those frames continuing along this entire section of the building. And so based on this, I would expect to start seeing deliveries of more glass, and then we will start seeing the company starting to install that along this side. Now, I'm going to fly to the south along the road. We get a chance to see some of the Cybertrucks and vehicles headed over to the outbound lot, but I did notice that there is work going on here on the south end, right at this corner. It looks like it's some earthwork, maybe related to the light poles that are being installed, or there are some electricians working on the south end to remove, reconfigure, or change some of the lower power lines. And we'll see that at the bottom or the end of the video. As I come over the cyber pond, I wanted to give you a closer in perspective of the tunnels. The white pipes are for the roof drains. You can see the geotextile membrane on top of the tunnel, and then more of the dirt and gravel mix being put on top. Plus, they're working on the grade next to the cyber pond. The middle section is going to be a walkway for the workers when they come out of the tunnels to be able to exit to the east or to the west. More of the preparation for the earthwork next to the glass of the south end of the building. And this tunnel also has its doors installed as they continue to work on that section. Now I'm looking across the road right next to some of these low power lines. There were electricians working here. They relocated to the upper right-hand side of the screen, and I will give you a closer look at that later. But again, that's sort of the reconfiguration work of some of these really old power lines that were put in within the first few months of the work here at Giga Texas. This is a view into the southeast corner. On the bottom left is where they have that interior structure for the Cortex, and then they also have some of the cooling system being installed inside. As I zoom in to the cooling plant, we see 4 of those 6 riser pipes have been installed. They look like they are now fixed permanently, and they're starting to install the 5th one in the middle of the screen. The blue pipes are part of the pumps, pipes, and clean-out system that is preparing this for operation. And as I bring the drone up to a higher altitude, this is a nice bird's eye view of this entire southeast corner, that new paved section just to the north of the cooling plant, and the concrete that has been poured around the base. Now we do see some earthwork between the concrete and the road, and it also looks like there's a trench that goes underneath the road as well. There is some of these brown pipes along this part of the road. These are very reminiscent of the natural gas pipes on the other side of the road, so perhaps we're getting more of that installed. As I zoom in, a great view of that paved area and the ground section of the cooling plant itself, and all of the work that is going on, and some of the testing and clean out of the pipes to make sure this is all ready for operation. So that'll bring us to a close of the video. As I pull away, look at the bottom of the screen. That's where the electricians are busy rerouting some of those lower power lines. As always, thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate it, and I hope you have a great rest of the week. Take care.